In the heart of Malawi, nestled between vast hills and shimmering lakes, there was a small village called Chikand. The people here lived simple lives, growing crops, fishing, and weaving stories to pass the time. But beneath the peaceful exterior of the village, an ancient mystery stirred, one that had been passed down in whispers for generations. It was said that on moonless nights, the witches of Chikand would gather in the forest, their powers woven deep into the earth and sky. But no one had ever seen them, not until one fateful evening when the moon vanished behind dark clouds and the winds began to howl. It began with a strange disappearance. Nia, a young woman known for her quiet demeanor, had vanished from the village without a trace. Her family, who lived in a modest hut on the edge of the village, searched for days. Neighbors whispered that she had fallen ill, or perhaps gone into the woods, but there was no sign of her anywhere. It wasn't long before others started to vanish. First, a fisherman named Chikandi disappeared while on the lake, his boat found drifting but empty. Then, several villagers reported hearing strange sounds from the forest, rustling leaves, whispered voices carried on the wind, and the unmistakable smell of burning herbs. As the disappearances grew more frequent, suspicion crept through the village. Old stories began to resurface, the legends of witches who could vanish into the air, who had power over the spirits and the elements, and whose only goal was to bring chaos to the land. One day, a stranger appeared in Chikand. His name was Mikosi, a traveler from the north, dressed in a long cloak of deep purple and carrying a staff carved with intricate symbols. The villagers, who had grown wary of outsiders, were unsure of him, but his calm demeanor and wise eyes quickly won them over. Mikosi took to walking the village, asking questions about the disappearances, listening to rumors, and speaking to the elders. He learned of the old stories and the fears that had plagued the people for generations. But he wasn't frightened. Instead, he seemed determined, as though he knew something the others didn't. "Where is Nia?" he asked one afternoon, seeking out the young woman's family. "She's gone," her mother said, her eyes heavy with sorrow. "And we fear she may have been taken." "Taken?" Mikosi repeated, his voice quiet but firm. "Or chosen?" That night, Mikosi gathered the villagers around a fire. He told them the truth of the witches who lived among them, not monsters, but guardians of an ancient power. The witches of Chikand were protectors of the land, chosen women who could commune with the spirits of the forest and the earth. But their magic, powerful and unpredictable, could easily turn against them if they were not careful. Those who wielded it could either heal or harm, depending on their intentions. The witches, Mikosi explained, were not born, they were made. They were ordinary women who, at certain times in their lives, were called by the spirits to serve a higher purpose. Some willingly embraced this power, others resisted. But none could ever truly escape. The village had lived in harmony with the witches for generations. But something had changed recently. A darker force had stirred in the land, an ancient spirit that sought to claim the power of the witches for itself. And it seemed to be using the fear of the villagers as a means to manipulate them. Nia, Mikosi suspected, had been chosen. Her disappearance was not a sign of danger, but a calling to fulfill her destiny. Mikosi led the villagers to the forest that night. The full moon had returned, casting a silver light over the treetops. The winds had settled, and everything was eerily still. In the clearing at the heart of the forest, Nia stood, surrounded by the other witches, women who had once been villagers, now marked by the magic they carried. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, their voices chanting in unison. They were performing a ritual, a rite of passage that would transform Nia into a full-fledged witch. But not everyone in the village saw it that way. "We must stop them," one of the villagers cried. "They're stealing our children. They're taking our people." Fear had turned to anger, and in the heat of the moment, several villagers rushed toward the clearing, brandishing torches and sickles. The witches, sensing the danger, paused their chant and turned to face the crowd. "Stop!" Mikosi shouted, stepping between the two groups. "These women are not our enemies. They protect us, even when we do not understand their ways." But the villagers were too afraid to listen. The firelight flickered in their eyes as they surged forward, intent on ending what they believed was an evil force. The witches raised their hands, and the earth beneath the villagers' feet trembled. Trees groaned, their roots twisting and reaching out like serpents. The wind howled, swirling around them in a violent gust. But the witches did not attack. Instead, they sought to defend themselves, to protect the magic that had been given to them. In the chaos, Makosi stepped forward once again, his voice rising above the storm. "Enough," he commanded, his staff glowing with a bright, ethereal light. "This fight is not yours to wage." He raised his staff high, and a powerful energy rippled through the clearing, halting both the villagers and the witches in their tracks. For a moment, there was silence, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. "Listen," Makosi said, his voice soft but filled with authority. "This is not about witches or villagers. This is about balance. The magic of the witches, the spirits of the forest, and the land itself are all connected. Nia is not your enemy. She is a guardian, just as the others are. She will protect you, as they have always protected you." The villagers, still trembling with fear, looked to Nia. The young woman stood tall now, her eyes filled with an inner strength they had never seen before. The magic had taken hold of her, transforming her into something both powerful and ancient. "Do not fear us," Nia said, her voice calm and steady. "We do not seek to harm. We only wish to protect this land, to ensure that the spirits and the earth remain in balance." Slowly, the villagers lowered their weapons. The storm in the clearing subsided, and the wind settled. The moon, now fully visible, shone down on the scene with a soft, soothing light. In the days that followed, the villagers of Chikand came to accept the witches among them once more. They understood now that the witches were not their enemies, but protectors, keepers of an ancient power that needed to be respected and understood. Nia, now fully a witch, remained in the village, her role as guardian clearer than ever. She was no longer just the quiet young woman who had once disappeared into the woods. She was a protector, a leader who would guide the villagers and maintain the balance between the human world and the spirit world. As for Makosi, he left Chikand as quietly as he had arrived, his task completed. But the lessons he had imparted to the villagers remained, like the winds that whispered through the trees, a reminder that fear could cloud the truth, but understanding could heal even the deepest divides. And so, the witches of Chikand lived on, their powers hidden from most, but always ready to rise when the land,